Welcome to Wets TV. Behind me is the new 911 Targa GTS T-Hybrid, and I've just completed a 3,500 mile pan-European road trip in it, which means we're going to deliver you the most extensive first look at what it's like to actually live with the 911 T-Hybrid day to day, while retracing the Targa Florio route on the 60th birthday of the Porsche 911 Targa. Best get stuck in. So here's how the road trip of a lifetime unfolded, beginning with firing up this new Targa GTS T-Hybrid and getting it ready for its Euro trip. We'd be hitting up 5 countries during the adventure, beginning with France, and so you know which shot is coming up next. Day 1 was a case of sailing through Francois as quickly as possible, hitting up Germany in the Black Forest by day 2. And yes, I was joined on this trip by a legendary bunch of people from the Driven Not Hidden collective, the sights of their Porsche silhouettes only adding to the splendour of our surroundings in this beautiful part of Germany, where flowing roads were only punctuated by quaint towns and tasty treats en masse. We soon hit Switzerland, known for its strict speed limits, and while no driving felonies were committed, there was a murder.
You've left to stay on house for our 7.
Never will be good enough for her. But no.
Continue on.
Before long, the Alps were looming large, though many of the passes were still closed in this part of early summer. And to be honest, we'd done them before. So the motorway was the name of the game, slicing through picturesque Switzerland and slipping into Italy for our first notable stop, which gives us a chance to take a look at this 992.2 Targa in a little more detail. Hello everybody, welcome to Lake Como. Look at that. In fact, we've just had a beautiful late lunch, early supper stop, because we're now headed for the boat at Genoa. Before we get on the road, I thought it'd be pertinent to just show you this car, have a bit of a walk around and show you the spec really, before we pass on some opinions on the car a little bit later in the video. So 992.2 GTS, which means it's the hybrid version. Colour, first of all, is gentian blue. I mean, it's a really lovely, like, deep blue, although it's quite subtle. It's quite an elegant shade, I think. It is a GTS, but what I really like about this is looking at these, the wheels. I'm not talking about the design. You can see the 5 lugs there. So there's no centre lock. Centre lock wheels are standard spec on the GTS, so these have been spec'd on deliberately, and I like that because I perceive those to be road trip friendly. Centre locks do look great, but I can't deny I would feel more than a hint of anxiety if I was to get a puncture on a wheel with a centre lock. You'd be stuck at the side of the road. At least when you've got the 5 lug design, pretty much anyone can whip that wheel off. Take a look inside. This has got a tint on the back. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail later on as the dog walks past. Not a fan of this tint. I think it makes the car look like a van. So that is not for me, but you may think differently. Inside, look at that lovely interior. The colour is truffle, but it's club leather optional, which means it's super soft. And actually, one of my favourite design hallmarks on this entire car is that along the door you've got that beautiful, like, baseball cross stitch that comes with the club leather option. The leather itself is super soft, super soft. So it's a really nice touch. It basically gives the feeling of driving, when you're driving this, it's like a cigar lounge on wheels. Really nice, elegant place to be. Can I open the door a bit more? Yes. Speaker choice, Burmester. Now, press cars usually just come with the Bose, so this has been quite the experience. For people that ask, I usually just say, for audio, don't get the standard speakers because they're rubbish, they're very tinny. Just get the Bose upgrade, it's good enough. The Burmester is a step on, it's obviously better than the Bose. It's good but not great, I would say. Doesn't quite get there. It's good but not great. I would just get the Bose personally. Other bits and pieces, again, just in regards to spec, because it's GTS, it's got the Sport Chrono as standard, which includes the Sport exhaust. The GTS, there is no manual option, so it's PDK only. It's 8-speed PDK. So yeah, there we have it. That's just a brief outline of the spec. It's an interesting car, the GTS, because 152 grand and 540 horsepower. 10 years ago, that was Turbo S power. And to be honest with you, if I can get it in, there we go. 10 years ago, it was 152k. That's Turbo S money. Obviously, the rise in values of, or the rise in the price of new 911s has been a hot topic for about a year now. The reality is people are paying it, but people aren't happy to pay for it. And I've been told quietly by those working in the network that the 992.2 has been a bit of a slow burner so far. And I chiefly think cost has got a lot to do with it. There's so much variety available in the used market. You know, are people pining for the new stuff in the same way they once were? I'm not sure. But that is a story for another day. So that's the spec of the car here at Lake Como. Now we're going to jump back in the car, keep driving, get on the ferry to Genoa and keep getting to know the 992.2 Targa en route to Sicily and of course the Targa Florio. As the water laps the shore at Lake Como, we pointed our Porsches south towards Genoa, where a boat would do the heavy lifting for our next big leg. But first, it's worth explaining a thing or two. So how are we here? How did this road trip come about? Well, it all starts from a couple of years ago, really. I had an idea or a dream to drive as many road racetracks around the world as possible in, admittedly, my own car in Little Irish. Reference the Monaco Grand Prix, for example. Drive around that circuit because it's the streets of Monte Carlo. Same with Le Mans and like the Mulsanne Straight. The Targa Florio sprung to mind, even Pikes Peak in the States, and it's still a dream to ship Little Irish over to the States. I know it's a ball ache to do so, but it's a dream I harbour and it's something I would absolutely love to do. So the Targa Florio was thrown into that mix because, look, it's a world famous street race. And I mentioned this on our 9wax Radio podcast at the start of last year with a follow-up message dropped into our Driven Not Hidden Collective WhatsApp groups and one of the conversations. And lo and behold, the people that are here on this trip with me, they too said they would love to drive the Targa Florio in their own 911s. Now, it is a long way from the UK. It's going to be about 3,500 miles all told, and the people with me on the trip, they know this, so it requires an adventurous mindset, a little bit of patience, but crucially, when you're doing it as a team and as a collective, as we are, you know, good vibes as well. So I doff my cap to the people that said, yes, I really fancy driving from the UK to Sicily to retrace that famous road and relive that iconic race. So that is why we're doing it. Thrown into the mix 50 years of Targa, and lo and behold, we have possibly the perfect opportunity in which to test out the latest iteration in this, the Targa GTS with hybrid technology. I can't lie, I moved house last week, suboptimal time before doing a 3,500 mile road trip through Europe. I'm prepared, but just about. I lost my shades in the move, so I'm actually borrowing some shades from the wife. Luckily, I could find all my underpants. What I did forget also was the telepass tag, and we're coming up to yet another toll with the ticket machine on the left where I don't have a passenger. As night fell, we reached the busy port of Genoa, which was harder to find than you might expect, eventually boarding the ferry by 11 p.m. for a 20-hour jaunt south to Sicily, beginning with some decent shut-eye in my temporary nautical abode. The ferry south wasn't actually that bad, and a sunny day at sea soon gave way to a pleasant, balmy evening as we got our first glimpse of Sicily's stunning landscape. It felt great to finally roll the Targa tyres on Sicilian terra firma. We travelled 3 days to be here, and I was keen to soak up the vibe, holding out for a solid 7 seconds before electing to lose the Targa's roof, the spectacle of which clearly made this dude's day.
Head south, then make a U-turn.
sunroof stowed, Sicily was ready for me. But was I ready for Sicily? So choose any lane and use your horn. Good stuff. Oh, and don't wear a helmet if you're on a bike. And then go straight for a red light. Love it. We battled through Palermo's manic streets, heading inland and uphill as the temperature plummeted and a spooky mist took over. It meant we'd have to wait until the morning to fully appreciate the beauty of our surroundings for the next few days. Targa finally on the Targa Florio. We begin at the famous old pits. Well, it is absolutely awesome to be here in the pits at this storied race circuit. The Targa Florio is certainly one of the world's most famous and iconic road races. The first Targa Florio was back in 1906 and it was the brainchild of Count Vincenzo Florio, an aristocrat here in Sicily that wanted to put the country back on the map. There's a real irony to that because Sicily, it's the most invaded part of Italy. It's one of the most invaded parts of Europe, in fact, if you look back over the course of history. But Vincenzo Florio's idea was to say, well, look, come to Sicily by all means and drive our roads. Now, the race changed quite a lot over the years, as we're going to dive into, but essentially it was a mad dash round Sicily, taking in many kilometres of roads, only some of which were tarmac. The original lap was over 100 miles long. That was the Grande circuit, which was the pre-war years. In between the two wars, the circuit was shortened to what we know today as the Medio circuit. And then post-Second World War, so from the mid-50s, 1951, up to the last Targa Florio race in 77, we had what is known as the Piccolo, the small circuit, which is still 45 miles long, 72 kilometres. Drivers did 10 laps. So even in its shortest form, you had 720 kilometres of very uneven, bad and sometimes non-existent roads, which on practice days weren't even closed. You could genuinely be steaming around a corner in your 908 and come face to face with a load of sheep or goats. It's absolutely crazy. The race quickly gained notoriety, as I said. Post-war years, Porsche took an interest. First one, the Targa Florio in 1955. That was a year after Sterling Moss in the Mercedes, by the way. And the company went on to win this race 11 times. It's actually the most successful ever manufacturer to take on the Targa Florio. 11 different outright victories with 11 different drivers. Porsche is also considered the eternal winner, with the pairing of Muller and Van Lennep winning in 1973, which was the last time the Targa Florio was associated with the World Sports Car Championship. The Targa Florio race itself continued until 1977 before being canned, to nobody's surprise, for safety reasons. Vincenzo Florio's plan clearly worked. Over 100,000 people, this is over 100 years ago, came to Sicily to watch this race. The locals loved it and still do today. Once the rest of the Driven Not Hidden collective descended on the pits, we nabbed a group shot, then headed along the famous circuit to Cerda, where the race originally started. It was here we met Antonino, curator of a private museum dedicated to the Targa Florio, featuring an array of artefacts including historical photos, race-worn suits by famous drivers, cars, bits of cars, and a race balaclava worn by Quick Vic Elford, who's highly thought of here on Sicily. Sicily's fascination with the Targa Florio isn't just limited to museums. It's evident in the streets you walk and even the wine you sip, when the cars are put to bed, obviously. We ourselves still had much to explore, but this was already becoming a special pilgrimage, and it was about to get much, much more special, for the very next morning, something magical happened.
Oh my God! That is absolutely awesome.
All of a sudden, it was 1973. And we weren't remembering the Targa Florio, we were in it.
That's awesome. Wow, wow, wow.
Apologies, this is on the fly, so apologies for the sound. I can't believe this. This was not planned. It just so happens we've come to Sicily at the exact same time as a classic Targa Florio rally taking place. We've just followed a couple of RSRs through the town. We've ended up on the start line. We were in the Targa. I actually think they maybe thought we were press or something, I don't know. We weren't on the blag for once. And we've just come through the town following right behind these RSRs, the sound of their megaphones reverberating off the buildings, and we have got to the start line. This was not planned. I didn't know this was going on. This is such a happy accident, but it is like it's transported us back in time to 1973 to watch these cars on this iconic circuit. Mega. It turns out a rendition of the Targa Florio race still takes place today as a regulation rally, though this was the first one since COVID. We truly struck gold here. So what did we do next? Well, we didn't stick our drop-top water pumper on that start line, but we did meander the 50 or so yards to it by foot, the smell of race fuel filling our nostrils, the lumpy, throaty idle of race engines thumping through our ears. This was outrageous. And if you're into these cars as much as I am, this next clip comes with a warning of explicit Porsche content. We did manage to get onto the course, but not for a parade lap because they're completely pointless. No, we just had somewhere to be, so the collective cruised over to Colosano for a street party where special cars were parked curbside and we'd nabbed an invite, giving us a great opportunity to find out a little more about what the hell was going on. Can't believe I'm going to say this really, but welcome to the 2025 Targa Florio. Lo and behold, the very same weekend that we are here in Sicily, the 109th edition of Targa Florio is taking place. As I said earlier, I had absolutely no idea. It's bad planning really, Sibs, isn't it? You could argue. I had no idea this was taking place. Of all the weekends to be here, we get to see the rally, or the race, the cursor in action. It's kind of split in two. You've got modern cars, then you've got historics. It's a regularity rally. It's so cool that this still takes place. Again, it's such a storied competition. And in the grandest of Italian and Sicilian ways, it's still going on now. And among these streets, there are race cars going. It is just it's still a live street. There are kind of some blockades, but it is still a live street. And then it's also blessed with race cars. It's so incredible to see them. But anyway, thanks to our friend Kestis, who's in the DNHC, and I'm going to show you his and everybody else's car shortly. He has spoken to some contacts that he has, because he lives here in Italy, spoken to now friends at Porsche Club Sicily, who have really sorted us out, as you can see, with this amazing parking on the start line. So we shall do a Martin Brundle style pit walk where we're ogling at cars rather than chatting to people. And I can show you the first car that's on our road trip. And this car does belong to Kestis. And it's a lovely 997 GTS. And the spec on it is absolutely fantastic. Kestis picked it up in Germany about 5 years ago. Had around 70,000 miles on the clock. 70,000 kilometres, I should say. He's doubled that in just 5 years. He's definitely subscribing to the 9 works driven not hidden mantra. And I mentioned the spec. Take note of the ceramics for starters. And then, yeah, inside, really, really cool. I don't think it's open. But lots of leather. Camera's not focusing. Lots of leather. It's PDK, it's GTS, it's the C4 version, so it's such a great all-round 911, this. Look at it. Wide-bodied, weren't they, in the 997 GTS, like all GTSs. This was the first of what is now such a popular sub-brand for the 911, the GTS. Beautiful, beautiful thing. And what I am so chuffed and proud and privileged to see is that 9work sticker on there. It's always such a joy when I see people rocking that OG money can't buy 9work sticker. I'll never sell them. I'm happy to give them away to collective members. All they have to do is ask. That Targa you've seen enough of this video, so we'll move on to Andy's 992 GT3 Touring. This has been such a joy to follow, and actually it's really shown how muted this 992 is, but I guess it's an unfair criticism and comparison because a GT3 is always such a raucous affair, and this thing sounds great. It's hugged the road wonderfully. It's just been an absolute machine on this road trip, touring living up to its name. And what's been great is next to it we've got the original Touring owned by Stephen. This is in the launch colour of the Touring, if you remember, sapphire blue with the chrome window trim. I think it looks absolutely sensational on the silver wheels. I wonder if the camera will allow, maybe not, but just, yeah, nice to have them side by side. I did do a video 991 v 992 Touring. It's on this channel somewhere, go and take a look. I just think this is wonderfully simple in its design. It looks sensational on the road, and Stephen has pedalled it admirably throughout. So next to that we've got Pete's GT4, and again, this is what's always funny with these road trips. You spend a bit of time following these cars and it kind of captures your imagination. Spent the last few days thinking, an original GT4. They are a spectacular amount of car for the money right now. That could be something that in the future I might like to own perhaps. I've really enjoyed following that. As I said, it looks great in a Gates grey. Pete also rocking the decal, which I'm really chuffed to see, and I'm loving the motorsport style Porsche script along the top, but also then the GT4 on the end plates. Look at that for a shot down the line. Beautiful, beautiful lines. The cars are covered in dust because we've been driving, so we're all fairly unapologetic about that. I really like that strip down the middle actually. That's like a matte strip that Pete's got there, if you can see. That does look really good. If I can go back and you can see the whole thing. There we go. And we got frontals of the Tourings. Absolutely beautiful. Then on to Jason's Boxster. Not had it too long. First foray into Porsche. And yeah, he was just telling me earlier on that it's kind of his opportunity to decide if an open top Porsche is for him. So TBC on that, I think. He's put aftermarket wheels on. They are extremely lightweight. I can't remember how much weight is saved, but they are a 911 fitment. So he said if he ever sells the Boxster and chooses something 911 oriented, they will go straight on. And we'll have a look inside as the top's down. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Then we've got Mike's 997 Turbo. Again, Mike's had this not long. Picked up from Scotland, drove it back down to the coast. Already tanking on the miles. Last Metzger engined turbo is the 997.1 with VTG, variable turbine geometry. There we go. Cool, that was difficult, wasn't it? Again, I've done a video on that. And next to Mike's 997 Turbo is a narrow-bodied 997, a Gen 2. This is owned by Mark. He too has put that strip down the middle, which I very much like. I'll show you the back as well. The thing looks even better from the back. Mark has gone for the Zunsport and or other grills, which is such a good idea, this, because as you know, the Achilles heel of a 911 is stones get hoovered up into there and then damage your rads and condensers behind. Also love these wheels as well. It's probably my favourite 997 wheel design, especially with the back where they're slightly more concaved. Very, very nice. Mark is also repping, which I'm extremely grateful of. Yeah, have a look at this with the strip running down the louvers of the deck lid. I think that looks masterly. 997.2, you just don't see many of these because it was they were built in the middle of a worldwide recession. So it's always lovely to see. I think they've aged spectacularly. And it's really nice to see. And then we've got Brian's Targa, which joined us on the DNHC tour to Northumberland a couple of months ago, and it's back for a Sicilian adventure. Brian has been over to Sicily before and traced the Targa Florio. He's a big fan of the race and its history. This time he's brought his son Ethan with him. It's for some magic father and son time. It's been awesome watching that from afar this week. Look at that interior as well. So colour, I should say, it's a Venturine green, which connoisseurs will know was a 993 colour originally, brought back for the 992 palette, for the 992.1. But yeah, look at that interior, heritage interior, courtesy of Porsche exclusive. Can my camera pick that up? I think it can. Looks great, doesn't it? Looks absolutely great. How awesome is it that we can get these sorts of interiors back into cars? It makes things like my 911 look a bit plain on the inside by comparison. With a houndstooth, that is really, really wonderful. Then we got some Fiats and whatnot up there. Not overly bothered. Not overly bothered about these ones. But I'll show you the start line, where motorsport lives on in the heart of Sicily and Colosano. So yeah, I'll walk away because I'll get drowned out, which may be a bonus, who knows. So yeah, that's the lineup of the cars. Again, it's such an old adage, but you come for the cars and you stay for the people. It has been a blast, this trip. New faces for me. There's quite a lot of new faces in there, certainly in terms of spending lots of time with people. It takes a certain type of person to do, particularly a road trip like this with many thousands of miles on. An overly adventurous type, I would say, that's a risk taker and happy to roll dice, because there's so many things that can go wrong. The upside of that is the gains to be had from these adventures are always so much sweeter. And we have just had the best time getting to know each other as a crew, boys and girls as well. It has been absolutely first class. I've loved it. What a day we've had. It's been so far removed from reality. I'm almost thinking, you know, when we next go home and we're stuck into the 9 to 5 again, I'm going to think back to today and think, was that real? Did that actually happen? It's been so good following those cars earlier on, the RSR evocations on the Targa Florio route. Took me right back to 1973. And what has been fantastic, thanks to Kestis from the collective and Porsche Club Sicilia for inviting us and having us part of this celebration, it's shown us that whilst the history of the race is so important and so special to islanders here, it's still very much alive and kicking, which really is awesome. So thank you to everybody for having us. In any case, that's the lineup. We'll carry on having a bit of a street party here, as it's going to be. And we'll see what tomorrow brings here on the Targa Florio. The official Targa Florio Museum resides at Colosano, so we took that in, grabbing the chance to watch some rousing archive footage from Guys van Lennert's victory in a 911 RSR in 1973, while historical photos showed us just how much history really is still on the surface of these streets, as we headed back out to watch the action from 2025. This has got 911 written all over it. Day done. We finished with food before heading home, ready to recreate what we'd just seen the very next day. So before we go off pretending to be a 911 RSR on the Targa Florio today, I want to talk about this car, the 911 Targa itself. Porsche took the Targa Florio race very seriously. There are stories of drivers being sent to Sicily 6 months before the race in order to do recce's in potential cars that Porsche would be running. Think Sportomatic 911Rs, 917s even. They were all tried and tested here on what is the public road, don't forget. There's also, again, stories from locals of a nondescript garage near the coast that Porsche used as a base camp for the sports cars. That commitment paid off, and as I've mentioned previously in the video, Porsche is the most successful manufacturer at the Targa Florio with 11 outright wins using 11 different driver pairings. Incredible. So Stuttgart loves the race, and it loves the race so much it named its first open top 911 after it. As you'll well know by now, the 911 was born in 1963. The first cars were produced for 1964. They were as coupes, but Porsche did want to create an open top version like the 356 before it. The problem was a backlash stateside as to the feasibility or safety of open topped cars. Now, Porsche did trial what we know now as a cabriolet body style. I remember writing about it and seeing a prototype up close, probably around 10 years ago now. It's still out there somewhere, people. But ultimately, the project failed due to rigidity issues. The solution was this: a roll bar at the B pillar that would protect occupants on the inside in the event of the car rolling over. Now, believe it or not, Porsche's first working name for this roll bar concept was the safety cabriolet. Again, a direct response to US crash safety concerns stateside. Now, the marketing department, thankfully, did not go with 911 Safety Cabriolet as the name and wanted something a little bit more appealing, where they turned to success from one of its favourite races, the Targa Florio. It is said that 911 Flori was mooted as a potential name for the open-top car, and it was Harold Wagner, sales director at the time, unfortunately he's no longer with us, who said, well look, why don't we just call the car Targa? And thus, the 911 Targa was born. Released in 1965, the 911 Targa is now 60 years old. Interestingly, Targa in Italian means licence plate, and it's alleged that Porsche wasn't aware of this until filing the paperwork for the patent. So behold, 60 years of the 911 licence plate, as our Sicilian friends would say. With your history lesson over, the 992 was prepared for takeoff before I headed out on my own, intent on retracing the Targa Florio in a modern day Targa, which did and didn't go to plan. The modern day Targa Florio split into 3 sections across the Piccolo circuit, which meant some of the roads were closed, and a wrong turn down what I thought was a detour ended up with an expensive 911 traversing down a tight goat track, with photographer Ali Cusick having to help guide the car metre by metre over what was Dakar-style terrain.
God. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
When we eventually returned to civilization, we found race cars moving through traffic on public roads between stages, which gave us the feeling of practice days back in 1973 when the roads remained open. It's worth rewinding that corner, by the way, because sure, we were living through history, but we were also retracing it. By late afternoon, all roads were open and the crowds had gone home, which meant I and the Targa had the Piccolo circuit to ourselves for a spine-tingling drive well into the evening, examining all the elements that go into the legendary, if crazy, Targa Florio race. It's so iconic, but it's also notorious. Many deaths, not just drivers, spectators as well. And it's the reason the course has changed so much over the years. I actually drove the Piccolo, this small 45-mile circuit, last night with some of the Driven Not Hidden collective members that have accompanied me out here. Then this morning we drove the Grande circuit, the Mac Daddy. And I have to say, I can totally see why that was canned. It's treacherous even by modern standards. But there's a real allure to the Targa Florio because here on Sicily you pretty much can cover the entirety of the 720 kilometres, and doing so will confront you with the reality of just how brave those drivers back in the day were to attempt this course, because honestly, let me tell you, even today the course is so treacherous. Big drop-offs, so many corners, and for context you think of the Isle of Man TT, which is another like notorious road race. That circuit, I think 38 miles, has 20 odd corners. The Targa Florio has around 800 turns. And as Brian Redman once said, it's easy to forget your left turns from your right turns when there are so many of them. And then you've got to think of the cars that the drivers were in, and you think from a Porsche perspective, you know, 908s, Richard Atwood tested a 917 round here. All of these cars where you're pretty much lying down, your feet are up right in the crash zone, crumple area, just about seeing over the steering wheel on these bumpy, brutal roads. And that's why there are some famous shots of drivers after this 720 kilometre endurance race sitting there next to their car with blistered and even bloodied hands, physically bloodied hands from driving a car. So there's the corners and the sheer amount of them that drivers faced. The other big challenge was road surface, or lack of it, because you could literally go hurtling round a corner to find that a section of the road just isn't there. And the mad thing is, it can still be the case today. I don't think there were traffic lights on the Targa Florio race of the 1950s, 60s and 70s, but here we are. Actually, while we stopped, it's a really great case in point to make that the lap record, or fastest ever lap record on the Targa Florio race, was set by Leo Kinnunen in 1970. He lapped the Piccolo 45-mile circuit in 36 minutes and 30 seconds with an average speed of 79 mile an hour. Even doing this course today, that sort of pace has blown my mind. I think of Guys van Lennep in 1973 piloting that 911 RSR with Mary Stuart Collar to success. And that car and Van Lennep are the eternal winners of the Targa Florio, because that was 1973, which was the last year of the Targa Florio at least being on the World Sports Car Championship calendar. It was canned thereafter for safety reasons. The race itself went on till 1977 before the thing was called off full stop and outright, again due to safety reasons. And driving it today, I can see why, if I'm honest. And naturally, as you might expect, with this course being so treacherous, there are many, many stories of legend to be told. And some of them involve my favourite drivers, British drivers that raced for Porsche, one of which is from Vic Elford. In his 907 he encountered centre lock wheel problems, and Sicilians literally came and picked the car up so that he could retighten the centre locking stud. Absolutely incredible. And actually, in speaking to locals today, and we've done a lot of that, it's very clear that they think as much, as highly of the late great quick Vic Elford as he did of them. Because I've heard on more than one occasion, every time Porsche won, it was because of the car. Except for when Quick Vic won the Targa Florio, it was his ingenuity, his brilliance behind the wheel of the 907 that won the race, because Quick was well out of contention due to these centre locking wheel issues that happened twice, but battled his way back, setting 3 lap records in a row to take the lead by the time he handed the car over to his teammate. Now, if Vic Elford's story from the Targa Florio was one of success and a triumph over adversity, Brian Redmond's was one of real horror. And I won't explain it to you because we spoke to Brian on 9WX Radio last year. I'll let him explain it to you as I drive the course.
Well, Siffert crashed the car pretty heavily the day before the race. It was rebuilt overnight. But on race day, John said to me, Redmond, would you like to start the race? I said, no, not much. Why? He said, I don't want Siffert and Rodriguez docking each other up. So I started. And right from the start, the handling wasn't normal. And I got 22 miles round the 44-mile circuit, and the steering broke. And I hit a stone kilometre post right in the fuel tank. and it exploded. And just before the race, a Porsche engineer said to me, "Aaron, if you must have the accident, do not crash on the right side." Which of course I did, which was right in the fuel tank. I held my breath, shut my eyes, and hit the belt release, and it came undone. I couldn't, I was so lucky with that. And I just stood, and for a fraction of a second before my eyes were closed by the fire, I saw the verge, and so I jumped. And so apparently there were some spectators there, and they were fanning me. It took 45 minutes before the helicopter was able to get to me.
Oh, excruciating.
A place that nobody knew where I was, and so it was terrible because I'm blind. Anyway, at about 10 that night, Richard Atwood arrived and Pedro Rodriguez, and they'd come looking for me because nobody knew where I was. Wow. They took me back to the hotel in Chafalou, and there was a German doctor who'd come with the Porsche team, and apparently he gave me pain-killing injections. And then the next day, Porsche and Gulf rented a jet, and that took me from Palermo.
Honestly, what an unforgettable few days we have had here on the Targa Florio. Those motor racing legends that have driven the same cars with that prancing horse on the front, and sharing the tarmac with them, albeit 50 years later, is a pretty surreal experience. The bravery, sheer bravery, to drive this course fast with an average speed of 80 mile an hour is honestly blown my mind, because being here and now, even in 2025, and seeing just how demanding this course, this route is, I'm full of admiration for them. It's no less dangerous today, really. It's definitely a route that demands your respect. So do respect it, or it will bite. The real icing on the cake, though, has been seeing the Targa Florio live for myself, being on the same circuit as those cars. It was a pure time warp. The sights, the sounds, the smells of 1973. I just really hope that enthusiasts younger than me will appreciate the feats of those drivers, those brave drivers, all in the name of victory, all in the name of a shield, because honestly, there's nothing quite like it anymore. I've had the privilege of doing some amazing things with Porsches over the years. This is possibly one of the best, and the special feeling of this whole trip is just enhanced by the fact I'm in a Porsche 911. There have been many 911s that have graced this course and this route over the years in competition, but the 911 Targa, this car, was named after this course. And even better, the first ever Porsche GTS was the 904 GTS, and it raced here in Sicily at the Targa Florio. And here I am, years later, with the latest, embracing a new future for Porsche sports cars and Porsche GTS sports cars with hybrid technology. So many wonderful bookends. The other thing is, the people absolutely love the Targa Florio. We have had the most lovely welcome from locals on this fantastic island. They speak little English and I speak no Italian, but this car has served up common ground and international language, and a mutual appreciation for this car its name and the brand's contribution to racing here on Sicily. So come along yourself and experience it. Bring your 911, because honestly, it's so rewarding for the history that's on these roads, but also for the challenge that's presented when driving them today, because it isn't easy. So you can follow in the tyre tracks of the likes of Redmond and Elford, Van Lennep. What you will have is just a truckload of the most epic memories. Something of a happy hunting ground and a home from home, really, for Porsche over the years. I think as an enthusiast, you have to come here and you have to experience it, either on race day or otherwise. Sun setting and Piccolo circuit complete. I called it a day. For tomorrow, the whole group was headed home. And this time, we were going to take the long way. Binning off the 20-hour boat to Genoa, our route would take us right across Sicily, all the way up through Italy, before smashing through the Alps and central France, a trip which would total 1,700 miles, and we'd do it in just 4 days with some epic stop-offs. Leaving the north coast's green, rolling hills behind, we hit the motorway with our first destination already in sight. It looks like a hill here, but this footage was filmed when we were still 90 minutes, that's the length of a football match, from reaching Mount Etna. As the kilometres ticked by, Etna began to dominate the sky, its lunar landscape a stark contrast to the vibrant greens on the other side of the island. It made for a spectacular drive up towards its summit, or at least as far as the road would take us, with outrageous views down to Catania and Sicily's east coast. Etna would erupt dramatically just 3 weeks later. Before leaving Sicily, we visited Savoca, home to famous scenes from the Godfather films. I can't lie, I haven't seen the films, and I don't really know why I got a picture in my Mrs. Shades outside Bar Vitelli, but I do know if I were to be charged 25 notes for this again, I'd probably start pulling some pretty gangster myself. The place, though, is properly beautiful, and the twisty road out of it is equally pleasurable, so long as you're not stuck behind a tourist bus. Anyway, with a quick boat hop, we left Sicily and hit mainland Italy, snaking up from the toe of its boot to a glorious sunset, ready for the astonishingly pretty Amalfi Coast the next morning. Dream days, by the way, look like this. Over the next 24 hours, we headed up past Naples, Rome and Florence en route to Maranello, the home of Ferrari. In truth, the place lacks the spectacle of Porsche Platz, But then Ferrari is a very different company to Porsche, and it was these cars I collected as a kid after all, so I was excited to take a look inside. Okay, here at one of the Ferrari museums, and whilst we've just had an absolute crack at the welding on the 812 Superfast through there, I do think, and I've always thought, the F40 is just the prettiest, most beautiful car ever created. I absolutely love it. I had Ferrari posters on the wall growing up. It wasn't Porsche, it's Ferrari. I collected Ferrari cars. In my adult life, I've found an appreciation for Porsche that will never be surpassed, quite clearly. But it is great to see these like halo cars. This is a bit before my time, to be honest. This was the first car that really captured my imagination, the F40. I could just look at it all day, I really could. I've actually had a passenger ride in one, and noted how you couldn't see anything out the mirrors at all, but I just think to look at, it's an absolute thing of beauty. I will always think it's the prettiest car ever made. The F40 inside that first exhibition was pretty much as good as it got. And while it was cool to see the engines which have powered the company to unrivaled success in F1, it isn't anywhere near as expansive or informative as the Porsche Museum, though it was still cool to visit. Driving up past Milan, the Alps were once again on our horizon, dicing through them as we entered the Mont Blanc tunnel, which goes on and on and on. France was on the other side, and another fill-up before the last day. The final miles brought mixed emotions. We'd seen so much and done so much, filling a lifetime of memories into just 10 short days. But we have a Targa to review, so how did the T-Hybrid fare on this most memorable of trips? We'll pick back up at the very same location we started this film, on an old friend in the D996 in France, to offer a conclusion. So first of all, excuse the football clobber. It's been a rather hot excursion to Sicily, and I've flown through the t-shirts, but it's the end of the video, so hopefully you can excuse. But look, there's a couple of things I just want to wrap up with really about this car and this trip, because the mic just isn't good enough with the roof down, so up it goes. We may have collected a fly, so let's see. Where were we? The Targa GTS T-Hybrid. As I mentioned at the top of the video, 3,500 miles through Europe in this car really is a good way to get to know it, and get to know it quickly. The reality is, a lot of what I discovered in my first drive review of this around a year ago at Ascari ring true. The GTS, or the hybrid system, for the Targa just gives it a whole new dimension of performance. This is the heaviest 911 of all time, but my God, it doesn't half shift. And you compare that to, say, the 991.1 Targa. If you didn't get the S, just the base Targa 4, 350 horsepower, it just didn't move. It's a really slow 911, that one. Whereas this can shift and keep up with the best of them. When you're really pushing in this car, you can feel the weight. And again, where it's a Targa concept, you can feel the weight quite high up the car at the back, and it's that glass rear screen, that glass clamshell. But that's a 911 Targa problem, not necessarily a GTS T-Hybrid problem, right? But this car is such a architecturally stunning thing. And I've really bonded with the platform over this trip. I'd previously said that the open-top version for me, the de facto choice would be cabriolet. And it is more practical, and if I was in a cabriolet, I'd be able to keep the roof down while having this conversation with you now. But the cabriolet's roof system definitely lacks the theatre, the pizzazz of this Targa. The Targa's roof system. It really is a wonderful thing to behold, and you don't get bored putting it up and down. even if it means you have to be stationary when doing so. So I've definitely warmed to the practicalities and living with this Targa concept. It's taken me 10 years to do so, but here we are. There are a couple of extra observations that this road trip has brought to light, and I do want to share them with you. I want to talk about the gas pedal, it's the accelerator, because it's definitely different in the 992.2 with the T-Hybrid system, and actually it feels quite like a Taycan pedal. If you think about the 991 generation cars, the accelerator pedal always had a really nice heft to it. It's hard to describe or contextualize what that feels like, but if you've owned one, you'll know what I mean. It was just a really nice like heft to the accelerator pedal. With this, the pedal's a lot lighter, and the feeling when pressing it is a bit like an elastic band. When you put your foot down, you can feel the band being stretched, and then when you take your foot off, it goes back again. But the sensations of the swing between the two is quite smooth, particularly in normal mode. It means that, again, in normal mode, there's a lot more pedal travel before the car gets going. That just feeds into a smoother driving experience. That's exactly what the Taycan does, by the way. There's a lot of gas pedal travel before it starts moving, whereas again with the 991s, as an example, that just wasn't the case. The other point I'd like to make relates to sound, because I was really impressed with the sound of these T-Hybrid 911s at the first drive launch event a year ago. They were pre-production cars, actually. This full production version, it delivers handsomely still. I was a little bit worried, is it too quiet? Definitely not. Yes, the flat 6 note has changed. Kind of sounds a little bit more PlayStation-like, doesn't it? It sounds great in the Targa with the roof up. And as I mentioned on that first drive, there's lots to listen to, because you can hear, obviously, the exhaust, but then you can hear like a high-pitched whining of the electric motor, and then when you let off, you can hear the hiss of the turbo, and you still get that here, and it really is fantastic. Just adds extra sounds to add to the experience. When I picked this car up, it had done 3,500 miles. I've obviously doubled the mileage. Over those 3,500 miles, the car exhaust has woken up. It's definitely got louder as the car and the engine and the exhaust system has bedded in. So that is really pleasing, actually. And as I said, it's got a good exhaust note, I think. And it's loud. You know, that any accusations of these cars being too timid from the exhaust note is just incorrect. There are things that grate slightly. Chiefly, it's the having to turn all of the safety features off every single time you get in the car. That has driven me potty. That's not a Porsche problem, that is like an EU-wide problem, legislated by people that don't understand cars, and it is infuriating. I have heard a rumour that it's possible to program that out, and I would definitely investigate doing that, because again, it is infuriating having to do it every single time you turn the engine off and on again. If it's possible, maybe ask your Porsche Pro, or look for an aftermarket solution. I'm sure there'll be something, because honestly it is infuriating. Kind of the extent of my dislikes, to be honest. The GTS hybrid system, a cynic would say it's the answer to the question nobody asked, because the e-motor is working with the flat 6 engine all the time. Sounds great, doesn't it? And yes, I get that, but particularly with the Targa, you know, the heavy, lumpy Targa, that hybrid system, T-hybrid system, has just elevated this car's performance, and it is sensational. The other observation really is a bit more reflective, and it's like the GTS name at large. I have to admit, it hasn't really felt like I've been driving a GTS per se on this trip, because there's no centre-lock wheels spec'd on this car. There usually is, but this has been spec'd as so, which is an absolute masterstroke, whoever in the PR team spec'd it, because when you're doing a big road trip, as great as centre-locks look, you can have centre-lock anxiety. If you get a puncture, you are stuck at the side of the road wherever that puncture occurred. With the 5 lugs here, it just opens up some possibilities in order to do a bit more about it, because you can get the wheel off easy enough. So I've enjoyed having the 5 lug nuts over the centre lock design. But centre lock is like a hallmark of a GTS, as is like the GTS interior with the Alcantara touch points. And because this has this lovely club leather, which is super soft to touch and feel, it's really lovely place to be. And again, I mentioned earlier in the video with this cross stitch, it's so exquisitely crafted, and in this truffle shade, it kind of makes the car feel like a bit of a cigar lounge on wheels. Not so much a GTS, but then that got me thinking about GTS and the evolution of that sub-brand, is what it is now, within Porsche. The GTS from launch within the realm of 911 was always created to bridge the gap, as the company said in its press release, between Carrera S and GT3, which it always did through elevated performance. It was almost like a GT3 Lite or a Carrera S Plus, you know, depends which way you look at it. Raised sound, slightly more power, race style kind of touch points. It all fed into that drama. It gave you more drama, more theatre. With the 992.1 generation, I felt there was a slight shift with the GTS, and it kind of became more of a turbo light, reference the fact that there's no power kit anymore. It's just increased power, which is a remap, and it was less weight than a 911 turbo, so turbo light. With this, it's completely different. As we speak in May 2025, there's no other 911 model which shares this technology. So on reflection, I'm feeling like GTS doesn't necessarily mean anymore bridging the gap between Carrera S and GT3, because the drivetrain is completely different. GTS to me is kind of, in its current form here, I think is a shift again into futuristic tech to increase performance. And it doesn't quite tap at the synapses in the same way the older GTSs do. But that's not to say that this is poor execution of the GTS name. It's just a bit of a change of direction, I think, for me, because again, the Carrera, for example, doesn't have this technology. The T-Hybrid system has definitely elevated the performance significantly of the GTS name in 911 form. And I think it still delivers an emotional, engaging experience, which, believe me, as an enthusiast and a bit of a purist, I think is central to the 911 DNA, the 911 driving experience. We're in a new chapter now of 911 performance. I was all for it on that first drive, and after 3,500 miles in the last 10 days, my enthusiasm and appetite for the technology has only grown even more. So look, 3,500 miles in 10 days, retracing the iconic Targa Florio in a new 911 GTS. What could be better? Doing it all with your mates.